Notes 10E, factoring. Factor, if possible, trinomials with real factors in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, including perfect square trinomials of degree 2. So while we're going over these notes, you can scan this QR code or go to this website to use some algebra tiles. So let's do this first example, x squared plus 7x plus 12. So first you want to count out each of these things. So we have x squared, so we have one of those x squareds, and then we have positive 7x. So we're going to put out 7 of these little green rectangles. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're going to have 12 of the positive little squares. Now, what you want to do is make a rectangle such that all of these objects fit perfectly. There's not like an extra space that's empty. If there is an empty space, then you need to either reorganize them, add 0 pairs, or it's just not factorable. So let's count these up. Okay, so we have 1x squared, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 x's, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 constants. So on your notes page, go ahead and draw that out in the box provided. Right here we have x, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, so plus 4, and then we have x, and then 1, 2, 3, plus 3. These are your factors. Your factored form is x plus 3 times x plus 4. Go to these web pages on YouTube or scan the QR codes to see these other problems done for you with algebra tiles. So what are 0 pairs? So let's just say we had 3x. 3x is the same thing as 3x plus 1x minus 1x. This right here is a 0 pair. Two terms that cancel each other out. Also answer, how do I factor using algebra tiles? Write that explanation on the line provided. Summarize what was on this page. Factor by slide and divide. Always factor out the GCF first, the greatest common factor. 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. The greatest common factor is 1 here. They don't have any common factors other than 1. So if we rewrite it, we have the same thing as before. Our coefficients is A is 2, B is 7, and C is 3. At the top of the X, we're going to do A times C. 3 times 2 is 6. Down here, we're going to write the B term, which is 7. These two numbers, they need to add to give you 7, and they need to multiply to give you 6. If you're not sure what those are, you could list out factor pairs to help you. 6 and 1, 3 and 2. 6 plus 1 is 7, 3 plus 2 is 5. So we're going to use 6 and 1. A is going to be divided by each of these. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have x plus 3. And then 1/2 doesn't reduce anymore, so we just have x plus 1/2. We're going to slide the 2 to the front. So there you have your factored form. X plus 3 times 2x plus 1. And that is your factored form. Let's look at the next one. We have 15x squared plus x minus 2. So the GCF of 15, 1, and negative 2 is just 1. So if we rewrote this, it's the same thing as before. So we have 15x squared plus 1x minus 2. Our A is 15, our B is 1, and our C is negative 2. When we find our coefficients, we also need to include the sign. If it's negative, you need to put that there. A times C is 15 times negative 2. That's negative 30. B is 1. We'll find two numbers that multiply give you negative 30, and they add to give you 1. Let's write out those factor pairs. So 30 and 1, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 is not divisible, and then 5 and 6. Now notice this is a negative number now. So we're going to have one negative and one positive factor. The bigger number is positive since B is a positive number. So let's find the differences. We have 29, 13, 7, and 1. So it looks like our last pair is what we're going to use, 6 and negative 5. We're going to divide by A, which was 15. And we write out our factors. So we have x plus 6 over 15. You can both divide those by 3. So you have 2 over 5. And then x minus 1 over 3, because you could divide these by 5. Okay, now you're going to slide the denominators to the front of each of the x's. And then you have your factored form, 5x plus 2 times 3x minus 1. Let's look at the next ones. 6x squared minus 16x plus 10. The greatest common factor is not just 1 this time. Looks like we could take out a 2. So then we would have 3x squared minus 8x plus 5. And that would all be in parentheses, and the 2 would be on the outside. So the coefficients, we have A is 3, B is negative 8, and C is 5. Draw your x. A times C is 3 times 5, that's 15. B is negative 8. Find two numbers that multiply to give you 15. They add to give you negative 8. So let's write out those factor pairs of 15. So we have 1 and 15. 2 doesn't work. And then 3 and 5. And then 4 doesn't work. Notice that this is positive and this is negative. So both of the factors are going to be negative. Negative 15 plus negative 1 is negative 16. Negative 5 plus negative 3 is negative 8. So we're going to use this pair right here, the negative 5 and the negative 3. Divide by A, which was 3, and then write out your factors. We have 2 on the outside, and then x minus 5/3 times x minus 3 over 3, which 3 over 3 reduces to 1. Slide the 3 to the front of the x, and then write your factored form. So we have 2 parentheses 3x minus 5 times x minus 1. And this is your factored form. Let's look at the next one here. 5x squared minus 35x minus 40. The greatest common factor here is 5. So we're going to rewrite it with 5 parentheses x squared minus 7x minus 8. We just divide each of those by 5, just like we divided each of the other ones by 2 from the previous example. So in this case, A is 1, B is negative 7, and C is negative 8. A times C is negative 8. B is negative 7. List out your factor pairs of negative 8. We have 1 and 8, 2 and 4, 3 doesn't work, and we've already used 4, so we're done with the cycle. Okay, so we have a negative here and a negative here, so that means the bigger number is negative and the smaller factor is positive. Find the difference, you get negative 7 and negative 2. We're going to use that first pair with the negative 8 and the positive 1. Divide those by A, which is 1. And there's no fractions to reduce here, so we could just write our final answer. So we have 5 parentheses x minus 8 times x plus 1, and that is our factored form. Before you go to the next page, reflect on what you did here. How do I factor by slide and divide? Describe the method that we used here. We find the greatest common factor, rewriting, identify the coefficients, doing the x, finding the two special numbers, simplifying and sliding them if needed. Factor by grouping, where there are 4 terms. So we have x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 12. We're going to group them into 2 parts. So we have x squared plus 3x, and then we have a plus sign, 4x plus 12. Okay, so we're going to find the greatest common factor of these first 2 terms. They both have an x and a 1. So divide each of those by x, so that you have x plus 3 left over on the inside. The GCF of 4x and 12 is 4. So we divide each of those by 4 to get x plus 3 left on the inside. Now notice that both of these groupings have x plus 3. That means we could take those out. If you take out x plus 3 on this one, you're left with 1x. If you take out x plus 3 on this one, you're left with plus 4. This is your factored form. Let's look at this one. X squared plus 2x plus 4x plus 8. Write out your groupings. Take out the GCF out of the first 2. They both have an x. And so now you're left with x plus 2 on the inside. 4x and 8, you can take out 4, divide each by 4 to get x plus 2 left on the inside. Both groupings have an x plus 2, so we can factor that out. And then you're left with x and plus 4. That's your factored form. I have x squared plus 2x minus 4x minus 8. Write your 2 groupings, x squared plus 2x, and then plus negative 4x minus 8. Okay, x squared and 2x, you can take out x, you're left with x plus 2 on the inside. Negative 4x and negative 8, you can take out negative 4. So you have x plus 2 left on the inside. They both have x plus 2 on the inside, so we can factor that out, and then we're left with x and plus minus 4, which is just a minus 4. And then we have this one, x squared plus 3x minus 9. Let's write our 2 groupings. X squared 3x, you can take out x, you're left with x plus 3. Negative 3x and negative 9, you can take out negative 3. Both of the groupings have an x plus 3, so we could take that out. And then we're left with x and negative 3. So x minus 3. So what happens when a negative sign is in between the second and third terms, like for this one, for example? What you want to do is make sure there's a plus sign in between the two groupings. And then, before you move on, write down, how do I factor by grouping? Write down the explanation of what we did on these examples on the lines provided. Don't forget to factor these whenever they come up. The greatest common factor, for example, on 2x squared plus 16x plus 32, the GCF would be 2. And so you'd want to factor that out before factoring the rest of the quadratic. If you have two of the same factor, that's what this 2 represents right here. It's repeated twice, so that's why we have a power of 2 right there. That is called multiplicity. Difference of squares, if you have something like x squared minus 9, you could change it to x squared plus 0x minus 9 and do the x method. And you can factor out this way, or you can use the formula difference of squares. A squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. You can find a by taking the square root of the first term, and you can find b by taking the square root of the second term, not counting the sign in between. Common divisibility rules. The larger number is divisible by the small number here. For 2, even numbers are divisible by 2. And then for 3, the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, then the whole number is also divisible by 3. For 5, integers that end in 0 or 5 are divisible by 5. And then 10, integers that end in 0 are divisible by 10. Look through these examples and try to make sense of them. Write out additional notes if you need to.